Everyone, this is Dan Olmsted, NEWA coordinator with the New York State IPM program. Today is Friday, August 31st, 2018, and this is just a quick monthly summary that is going to replace our normal August meeting that I had to cancel last Friday. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate it. So I have the agenda up here that I initially sent out, and you can see in terms of items, there's not too much going on, so I'll just jump into it. I think this is only going to take about 10 or maybe 15 minutes at most. The first thing I'd like to do is just go over some of the monthly trends and statistics from our help desk, which I have here in front of you, and you can see that it's been a pretty slow month. Again, I said it last time, it's interesting in that I think really our busy time of year, which probably makes sense to a lot of you in terms of help tickets and troubleshooting, is really going to be from maybe mid-May through the end of June, maybe the first week of August. So we only had 19 new tickets, and if I think about it, probably a good portion of those were more general questions, like how do I obtain historical weather data, as opposed to anything relating to directly to our models. You can see that I've solved some of the backlog. Um, with everything else going on, like our RFP and everything, I've really devoted a lot of time to that. So you'll see there are still some open issues, but I'm working with RainWise or NRCC to catch up on these. Um, this is an interesting feature. I'm still trying to decide whether to activate. This is probably more typical for like a commercial enterprise where you want to make sure people are happy with your service. So I'm thinking about doing this, uh, but I still am kind of weighing the different options. So that's it for monthly statistics and trends. The next item are the meetings with Rainwise and Onset that I had scheduled for last week. And again, due to family circumstances, I canceled the in person visits. I did, however, set something up with Rainwise, which took place at the same time I would have met with them, and we talked for probably about an hour and a half on various topics. Things that I felt were important included customer service, Rainwise content that we currently present on the new website. Um, there have been questions about getting them to some of our expos and grower conferences. So we had some really good discussion around those things. So just to summarize very quickly, what I will be doing is sharing a list of all of the conferences we're involved with in the Northeast, and I touched on this a little bit last time, but I still need to fill out that list and find contacts for folks in different states. So if you have any of that information, please do forward it to me. Otherwise, I'll follow up and make sure we've got some sort of representation for all of the big things going on. Another thing I talked about was collateral or promotional materials, and I'm going to ask the same questions of onset. But basically, do they have internally generated materials that can be used at our workshops or presentations when we're talking about NEWA and people are asking about weather station options, something we can just hand them. Um, so stuff like that. The other thing I'll mention is that I'm going to be having regular check-ins with them. This is something I suggested at least twice a year. I think sometime in early winter while things are still slow, and then again after the main portion of our growing seasons are over, so that we can have better communication. Again, this is another thing that I was very specific about touching on is how can we improve the process. This past spring, we did make some improvements because I got the help desk and I'm working with Ralph Rummel to directly share tickets at this point. On their end, several of you have said, they really need to address the lag time, and the information I have on that really is that Ralph uh, is the main person in the service department. Um, I said let's keep looking for ways to streamline the process, make it um, more accessible for growers who are buying Rainwise products and so on. So it's still a work in progress, but in the context of having a second vendor come on board, which I'll talk about in a second, hopefully it starts to reduce these pain points. So if we go back to the agenda here, I'm sorry. So the onset, I also canceled that meeting, but we are going to follow up with a big video conference call, I think on September 7th or 6th. It's next Thursday, and so we'll touch on a lot of issues, including okay, what can we do to establish a direct line for growers who want to purchase an onset station? Is there going to be a dedicated person in the onset service department, which is much bigger, to handle NEWA requests since we're kind of a unique situation? Um, will they have collateral uh, for advertising their products? I'm going to be equal opportunity in this so that growers or researchers can really uh, uh, do the background information collection themselves and then reach out directly. So stuff like that. And then also specifically their software development coordinator will be talking with us um, to go ahead and start getting the programming aspect of our web service um, going and finished by the 1st of January. So we are still on track for that. There's going to be some behind the scenes work, but I'll keep you posted. And if you have any other specific questions, please send me an email or give me a call anytime. I'm happy to answer it. The last thing I'll say on the subject of onset is that I've already actually had two researchers get in touch because, and this is independent of of any knowledge that we're going to be working with Onset to onboard their station data. There's a person at Virginia State University, and then there's another person whose name doesn't come to mind right now. But there is already a critical mass of folks out there who already have Onset stations who are interested in working with NEWA. Um, so I just wanted to mention that again. If you've got colleagues in your respective areas or states, keep this in mind because after the first of the year, the goal is to be able to bring those existing stations into NEWA, as long as they're in the participating states. All right, so moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the website build because there may have the impression of some radio silence for me this summer, but really, I've devoted all of my time to working with our colleagues here and really coming up with a comprehensive approach to how we're going to do this redesign. So I just want to walk you through this for a minute. So here we have this is the final document, and we've made the decision that we are going to work with Cornell CIT. So we're going to bring everything back at this point in-house, just because moving forward, I think it's going to be easier in terms of resources and having a good balance of technology expertise and research expertise kind of in the same academic umbrella, whether it's at Cornell or somewhere else. It's going to be much easier, in my opinion, to have this centralized so that um, Northeast Regional Climate Center can easily work with Cornell CIT. So what we're looking at here is, I think it's a 8-page RFP that we want CIT and NRCC to really, put heads together, figure out some sort of cost estimate for this. And this is really there. We want to know what the true cost is going to be. We're not at this point trying to fit it into a very specific monetary figure, but we want to have a complete picture of what it will take, given all of the research, all of the workshops, the projects I worked on last fall, all of these things brought together. What resources would we need in an ideal situation? So here we have some just of the general background information, but what I'll get into here really is the project scope. And After sifting through all of the different resources and data we've collected, there's a few main areas. The first one is project communication. This is going to be critical. In my first year and a half, I've seen that if we can't achieve this goal or this objective, nothing else is going to work well. So there's going to be a lot of effort and energy on my part and by everyone's part who's involved to make sure that communication is flowing well, that there's no breakdowns anywhere, so that we can achieve the ultimate objective of having a really good site a year or so from now. So within that, joint project management between NYS IPM, who I'm with, Northeast Regional Climate Center, who's our really strong partner, and then CIT, who is the new group, who will be doing key elements of this redesign. Again, this is all kind of to be determined because NRCC has some real strengths. We think CIT is going to have a different set of strengths, and so it's just a matter of these technology folks working together to come up with a cohesive plan that's going to meet everyone's needs. Then we have custom design. And so the very first thing I listed was, it's got to be responsive. This is part of our current USDA grant objective, so no matter what, we've got to achieve this. I've got some notes in here, and again, this is general because, we don't want a 25-page document for this RFP, but we've got programming. An element that we've always done all along, and Julie's been really good at this, is understanding how this needs to be presented to growers. What are the user experience, or how do we build these user interfaces? So Julie has always worked with NRCC in this area very well, and we want to continue that. So this is where the work I've done with Cornell graduate students in information science really comes into play. Some of the conceptual ideas they came up with last fall is built into this section. And then in terms of the actual content, in this RFP, I provide a generalized summary regarding what we want. And there's a lot of information here, and you'll see I'm going to share one other supplement with you that really gets into the nuts and bolts. And then I'll also have both of these attached to the email you should have at this point if you're seeing the video. We need to retain, all of the elements that the current website already has, because it does work well. And I think the results of our survey this past fall actually lend a lot of support to this. Julie and I came to this realization with a couple of key questions. But at any rate, we want to make sure that nothing is lost, but we also want to be able to make sure that we can enhance what we have with the additional research that we've done. So when you look at major design requirements, that's really what this is getting at. And I would say if there was one major theme that came out from what we've done the past year and a half, it's really that, okay, NEWA works really well. It provides really good information. But if there was any sort of pain point, what would that be? It would be upgrading the way you navigate around the site. And it's probably more organizational, but this is an area where having additional expertise on top of what NRCC can provide and what I and Julie have knowledge of, this is an area where CIT might be able to help us out. Also, in the area of website architecture. So how is the website actually constructed? How does page A associate with page B, or what is the hierarchy or structure of the NEWA website? Within architecture, a couple of key areas. A user profile system. This is where we need to look most closely as we start to move forward. We don't really have an idea of what this will cost, but we do know that this is very important. In fact, critical. Even for some of the models that are already in development. So Dr. Greg Peck's Apple Pound Tube growth model, really it needs the support to be able to save key pieces of information. But then there's other things also that we have in mind, but we need to be able to have individual saved settings. So some more research will be needed there, and hopefully we can get that as part of this RFP. Um, Content management system. Some of you who have your own websites might be familiar, but basically this is a way when you have a blog or a basic website of just organizing all of that content very easily. The one we have right now, it works, but we need something that's more flexible, something where for a given model, we have these dynamic messages. So when you reach a certain threshold of degree days, for example, with an insect, the message changes to say you need to do X, Y, and Z at this point in time. So we need a content management system that will allow us to very easily change those management messages depending on what the researcher wants. And then finally, this is really more for us behind the scenes, is some sort of new weather station management system. We work with FileMaker right now, but it's limited in several ways in that we can't print, we can't filter or sort records. It's all kind of very scroll through until you find what you need. There is a basic search function, but just something with more flexibility. Usability testing, once the models are built, is there anything we've missed? Is one model layout better than a different concept? Things like that. This is an area, again, CIT has a lot of strength in. And so these are just things that need to be worked out. I will say that we have a planning meeting as part of this RFP with them and with NRCC folks next Friday, September 7th to work this out, and then probably a week or so after that, we'll get our cost estimate back from the Cornell Custom Development Group. Then we just have some design implementation stuff. This has to do more with pieces that maybe are already in place, but that need to be well integrated. Under website construction, again, behind the scenes, this is iframes basically are a way of basically pulling one website into another without having to do any stuff. But moving forward, this is not going to be on the table because it creates too many problems and it reduces our flexibility, especially from the perspective of our programmers and designers at NRCC, to be able to maximize what is able to be done on the website. NEWA models, I'm in the middle of documenting everything right now. I've got all of the basic messages documented for everything we have. There's a couple other pieces I want to add in, but what at the end product of these, once I meet with all of the different model developers or the researchers who initially came to us to create these, once they've given an okay, we're going to have a baseline of documentation moving forward, and also for anything new that's developed of, okay, what is the intent of this model? What is it supposed to do? And this is where we can get very specific. Okay, so I want a drop-down menu where I can select grape cultivars and then other things like that. In terms of actual website elements, that'll be the last thing I share with you today. And then these are more kind of checklist type things that if we are able to do as we develop or rebuild the site, it will be really useful for me. I already mentioned content management system, but making sure that's easily integrated into the website. We all know we now have a help desk. There's ways where I can give it a similar look and feel as what our soon-to-be new website also looks like. So I need some help figuring out how to do that, but it is a common feature with Zendesk that they're able to do this, what they call integration. So it's a seamless transition. The examples they give are Airbnb, and there's another one I can't think of, but if you go to Airbnb help, that's actually Zendesk hosted, but it looks like part of the Airbnb website. So just in case you need an example. We also have the NEWA blog. If I can also integrate that in a similar way so that it's seamless, I think it will be really good from a marketing standpoint. And just in terms of flow for the end user, it would be much more intuitive. And then obviously analytics, that's more of a behind the scenes thing. The rest of this gets into more details about elements I've already described here. And I think for now, this is really what I wanted to show you with the RFP document. The last thing I'll do in this video is go over, and again, you should have a copy of this already, is to just go over supplement 1. This is where I mentioned we've done so many different things. We've got really important features in our current website, and I really thought for a while about how can we best capture this moving forward. I chose to do this as a supplement rather than include it in the RFP because it would be extraneously long document if I were to put everything in. And then this way, as the cost estimate is being developed, CIT can just use this as a reference. But very quickly, I'll just show you what I went through here. I documented, if you look at our current website, and I'll go there right now just to give you a visual. If you go to our website, when I talk about website elements, I'm talking about the way things are organized. So breaking this down, if you look at our page, up here we have what I'm calling a header element. Okay, so this whole area up here would be the header element, and then within the header element we've got all these little bits or nuggets of information, or maybe it's an image or some sort of feature. So this supplement 1 really, it's a map. I guess that's a good way to think of it. Is a map of what should be included in the news site. It doesn't necessarily say such and such, so it doesn't say the Cornell University logo should be in the upper left-hand corner, but it describes what each of these things are and why it's important, and it emphasizes the fact that it needs to be included in some way moving forward. So again, this is very long. I'm not going to go through everything, but you'll see it's very well organized. I've got everything numbered. So in terms of elements, the first letter represents a major element. So I'm saying this is the page header. Anything that's numbered as a subsection under here is something either that's already on the site or something that we identified through all of our research. So I'll let you go through all of this on your own if you wish. Again, it just provides a solid starting point. The last thing I'll do as part of this is, and maybe it's because I'm more of a visual person, but I was really concerned about missing something, and I wanted to be sure that absolutely everything that could be captured would be captured. So from my experience last year working with the information science students, there's this concept called wireframing. And so this right here is a good example of what a wireframe is. You're going to see there's no formatting, there's no color, there's very basic blocks, and there's just a reference. So I will blow this up so you can all see it. But in each nugget or each element, you're going to see there's a reference number. So this goes back to what I just showed you. This is all the same document. But if you look for that reference number, it's going to describe what that element is. Again, and I've made this point as I'm going along, that this is just a concept. I'm not even thinking this will necessarily be, what the layout looks like, but this is just a visual way to organize everything and reference what we currently have, so that I know I've included it in this map, so to speak, but that I also have already thought, at least at a very basic level, of how we might possibly integrate our new ideas, these things that growers have identified as useful or that our research has identified as useful. So that would be something like the home page. I just want to show you this right here. So we have a lot of things that we've got to include. So if we go to our station pages, I'll just go to a New York page right now. This is the parallel to what we have right here right now. And there's many levels to this, so I'm not going to go into it in the interest of time. Um, but if you're interested, take a look through these documents. If you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to talk to it. Again, email or call anytime. All right. In terms of our agenda, I think that's it for about for what we have here. Upcoming meetings, we're back to our 8:30 schedule. I know a couple of times this summer we tried a 3:30 time slot. Some folks felt it worked, other folks it was a little bit difficult. So maybe in October we'll talk about the 2019 schedule and whether we should try that again or just stick to an 8:30 time slot. Down here, you'll also notice I've started posting previous links to these summaries that I'm doing. So feel free to visit anytime. These are public but unlisted. So really, they're meant for this group, so NEWA coordinators and other people who are a bit more closely involved. So with that, I think I'm going to sign off. Thanks for your time. Our next meeting is September 28th at 8:30 a.m. and I will send a reminder prior to that. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, please let me know. Thanks a lot.